Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Music Lab podcast. My name is Dogg, and I'm so excited to be back with all of you for another episode of the podcast. I got some friends joining me today, the founders of New Colossus Music Festival in New York City. Say hi, everybody.
Hey,
Hey,
Hello.
what's up?
Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, our social media pages. That helps us, that helps the bands and artists and festivals that we feature. Also, check out our sponsor, RAR Outfitters. That's RAWR, outfitters.com. Don't just wear, RAR. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am so excited to have these three gentlemen on because I got to go to their festival for the first time this year. And as I told them before we started recording, I just had an amazing time. Welcome, everybody, first of all. Leo, why don't you tell me what this festival means to you personally, and then you guys can, each answer that question.
uh, the New Colossus Festival to me is more about a celebration of like-minded people coming together from around the world and able to meet up and express new ideas, exchange new music and talent, and hopefully unite in a way where they can help each other build their careers. There's a lot of people coming from Australia, Sweden, France, Germany, Canada, all over Asia, basically you name it. And we had our first band from Aruba together. And like Mike and Steven and I always say, the most exciting thing about it is not only just seeing live shows, but watching the bands unite and become friends so that later on they become touring partners as well.
Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, basically, this whole thing, without repeating what Leo said, is about displaying the importance of music within our culture and the connections that are made with live music. New York City is the actual live music capital of the world, no matter what anybody else says. And historically, that is true. You can get every kind of music that you could ever look for within this city on pretty much any given night. And the fact that we focus on a certain segment of the live music industry and the discovery that happens within that over the 6 days that we're doing this is just, it's to me, it's pure magic.
So
Steve?
yeah, for me, um, we have we survived the pandemic. We were building this great thing, and the pandemic hit on the second year of the festival, and we carried through, and then we missed 2021. So we started over in 2022. And what I'm most happy about with this year is we build this thing through really, we work on it year round now. It used to be more seasonal. And what happened this year is it finally grew to the point where all 12 venues were packed throughout the week. So we've been encouraging the bands to schmooze with each other and to make friends and to make connections and tour together. And of course, it's going to be more effective if all the shows are full. And they were, except for Thursday night when it rained, but can't control the weather. But so I've always wanted to get the feedback from the bands that say, "Oh my God, we met so many people. We're going to tour with this band and this band." This was the first year where literally every email we're getting from every band is just full of love and like, "Oh my God, you brought us to New York City. I can't believe it." Someone wrote, "I thought this was a scam. It seemed too good to be true," and I loved reading that
Yeah.
too because it's there's some very simple things that we're doing here. We're using our connection, our 20 years of connections, our relationships with the venues in order to make this happen, and our relationships with other countries. And that's grown a lot too, where we're going to Ireland, Iceland, Germany, England, Australia, lots of Canada, and we're finding these bands. And now that they know what the New Colossus Festival is, they're like, we just walk up to them. Leo and I do this mostly. We walk up and we're like, "Please come to New York in March," and they're like, "Okay." And about a third of those bands don't wind up making it over when they find out the expense and or they don't get funding. But that is just going to continue to grow. And the other thing that grew this year was we went from about 15 partners to 31 partners. And What that did is we only have a sort of natural word of mouth promotion. We're not a big corporation. We don't spend $100,000 on Instagram ads. So having partners on 31 parties, and you look at the numbers for those 31 parties, and they're all a lot better for the bands because there's a partner promoting. So I would like us to have 60 partners for all 60 parties. That's a goal. That would be really great. And that was the best thing about this year for sure.
So I know the answer, but why do this festival in the Lower East Side, and why do it the time of year that you decided to do it? And you can each answer that if you want, or one of you.
Mike should answer that.
Yeah, I mean, again, historically, that's where it all started. Even if the genre of music did not originate in New York City, it became a global phenomenon from the Lower East Side, whether it's popular music within like the mid to late 19th century. Jazz was being played on the Lower East Side. Hip hop was there, punk, indie in the late 90s and early 2000s. And then just the fact that all these venues are walkable. One of my biggest complaints about some of these other music festivals here or around the world was it takes some time to get from venue to venue, and that's just the design of those cities. And that's fine, but for us, having this community within this smaller section of the city where you can walk from venue to venue and you see people wearing their badges, you can be like, "Hey, what's up? What did you just see? Here's where I'm going." I love that, and the fact that music as a form of art can connect people. Again, I mean, I can't stop using the word magic, but I really, really believe in that. And if you have to walk 30, 40 minutes to the next venue, that doesn't really keep the community as intact as what we're able to do here. And thank goodness we have music venues that still exist on the Lower East Side. Back when CMJ was happening, I don't know. I mean, there are probably 2 to 3 times more venues than there are now. So thank goodness we still have, we had 12 venues this year. And sure, we can probably expand a little bit more into next year, but that's for another discussion.
Another
Anybody else
big
want to add to
selling
that?
point.
Yeah.
Yeah, another big selling point, I can say is a lot of the bands that are coming to play New Colossus and a lot of times it's their first time in New York in their life. And they grew up in the generation where like the Strokes, yeah, yeahs, Walkmen were like their heroes, TV on the radio in those bands. Clap your hands, say yeah. And I'm like talking to these bands in the crowd, and I'm like, "Oh, you're playing Parkside? I saw the first Yeah Yeah show there." And they're like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna be on the same stage as Karen O." And I was like, "Oh, you're playing pianos? Yeah, I saw the Strokes and Interpol there. Yeah, they played here too." And they were like, "Oh my God." So a lot of them, it's exciting just to be in the same rooms as their heroes played. And they're like, "What bar is the Strokes famous for hanging out in?" And I was like, "Well, I'll walk you there." Things like that. So for these kids, and to us they're kids, but in a band is a kid nowadays. But it's that it's exciting for them because I know like for me, like going to Manchester and seeing like, where the Happy Mondays and Oasis and like the Smiths like hung out is exciting for me. So it's similar to them.
Yeah, I mean, I think also too, what gets lost is you're right. I mean, there is so much history in these venues, in these neighborhood, well, in this particular neighborhood in the Lower East Side. And, when you're having these opportunities, like you said, to play in these venues for bands that, I mean, all of these bands that I taught, a lot of these bands, it was their first time ever being in America, let alone New York City. Like, it just has to be such an overwhelming feeling for them. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And they're all
Yeah,
excited to eat pizza.
yeah. I did a call with Alien Chicks yesterday. I'm just trying to help them find an agent and stuff. And sorry, one second. And Mets came up because we were looking at an agent that books Mets, and I was like, Mets played at Pianos in 2009, and I was at the show, and they were like, "What? We played at Pianos." So yeah, I mean that's going to happen. Um, and at the end of my call with Alien Chicks, they said, "We really miss you and we love you." And I was like, "Whoa!" I was like, yeah, it almost brought tears to my eyes, and they meant it. It was really nice.
yeah. So what is cool, like as you said though, with having South by the week after, it also gives these bands an opportunity to kind of get almost get two birds for one stone because they get to play both festivals. You're already making this trip over. You might as well try and play as many shows as possible. Talk about the importance of that, being able to, give that opportunity to these bands.
Well, I can just really quick. I mean, it does. In the beginning of the festival, that was a consideration, but over the years, we're finding that the percentage of bands heading to South by is shrinking. I mean, Stephen can give us the actual number, but it's a small percentage of our nearly 200 artist lineup for the past couple of years. So but that said, we really also need to consider that in Europe, especially artists, after like April, May, they're going to tour in Europe because it's easier for them. They make more money, and coming to the US is a lot more expensive after the winter time. So there are several factors of why March works. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
The other nice thing about this festival, and I think as you pointed out, is, a lot of times when you're a fan of a festival or you're going to a festival, you're always having to compete with bands playing at the same time or, at the same, at different venues or different stages that are, one end of the other. Allowing and having that accessibility, it really kind of eliminates that or very, limits those opportunities, I guess. Is that kind of factored in with your guys' thought process?
Absolutely. Part of the thing too is we give bands multiple shows. And what Steven and I really found, and to use one band as an example, Dust Love, like after a band plays their first show, a lot of people look at each other. And this year it was this band Active Mirror and Alien Chicks. After the very first show, we all looked at each other like this was amazing. I need to see the next show. And then I look around and other people are saying that to me. Then you start to see everyone follow them to their second show, their third
Yeah,
show.
so the fourth Alien Chick show, which was at Piano Sunday night at 7 p.m., you couldn't get in the room, and the entire room had seen the band four times,
Yeah.
and we're not going to miss their last show. And it was Sunday, which is not the most populated day of the festival. And the energy in the room was one of my favorite moments ever at the festival. There's a wonderful picture of it you can find on Instagram of like Maya, who did Door for Us, dancing with just, a bunch of our friends. And yeah, so you can literally you build a following in 5 days in New York. It's kind of and Alien Chicks are probably coming back in August already, which is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, we got to meet them after their show at New Colossus, and then we saw them at South by too. And the guitarist, he's just the nicest guy. Like I forget his
Oh,
first name, but
his name's Jack.
yeah, such
Yeah.
a sweetheart. So yeah, much love to them, and hopefully, yeah, it'll be great to get them back to the States, right?
Yeah. So yeah, Kristen from Maker Park Radio, who throws the Sunday day show, has a festival, Maker Park Radio Anniversary Festival. It's on August 1st this year. And we actually have a call later today to talk about bands. But I said, why don't you bring Alien Chicks back? And she was like, oh, great idea. So that was why I had a call with them yesterday to give them the offer and talk to them about it.
Yeah, we had Thus Love on it on the podcast, and is he still struggling with the Lyme disease, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that's just
She.
awful. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, we saw them at Green River Festival up in Massachusetts, and then we saw them at Union Transfer in Philly too. They're just great. Great band. So let's talk about the name of the festival itself. It was named after a lyric poem on the Statue of Liberty by Mike's wife. Let's talk about this story, how she came to
Wife.
or girlfriend.
Let me
Shit.
let me explain
Yeah.
why I'm objecting to that. So she is in two great bands, and Sivia, her first band, played the first year of the festival. And I ran around pianos going, Mike's wife's band is going on. Mike's wife's band is going on. And they played this great set, and Ruthie walked over to me and was like, I'm not his wife. So I always correct people on it now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have the exact. I don't know where I feel comfortable. It depends on who I'm talking to, I guess. So yeah, this festival. The short version of the story was I was at South by Southwest as the U.S. representative for the Norwegian music scene. I was looking after about 17 bands, trying to get people to care in a sea of people who were there for their own reasons and to check out the other 2,000 bands that were performing. Out of a bit of frustration, I was like, something should change. It should be there needs to be something that's focused on these smaller artists, and it should be in New York. CMJ was still happening at the time, but it's New York. Why can't we do two things in New York? So she suggested, well, you should call it the New Colossus Festival. And I didn't know what that was. So she explained to me it's the sonnet on the Statue of Liberty written by Emma Lazarus. The year was 1883, so 3 years before the Statue of Liberty was opened. And it's the whole welcoming sonnet, give us your tired, your poor, etc. And at the time, I mean, that's exactly what the festival was supposed to be about, welcoming these smaller emerging artists who, in many cases, it's their first time. And again, historically, when these immigrants came to the US in the 19th century and early 20th century, they came to the Lower East Side and they settled there. So there were so many dots that just immediately connected with that name. And yeah, it's kind of awesome in so many other ways. These bands could be the next big thing. So the new Colossus, yeah, that's yeah,
Except the email address is really hard to type.
yeah,
And everyone spells Colossus wrong, but everything has its drawbacks, right?
Yes,
right.
you're right. You're so right. Colossus, I spell wrong every
Yeah.
time. It's so like
Uh,
it's one of those words that just doesn't look like it's how it's spelled, you know?
no,
Yeah.
there's one L.
So I want to talk about how individually each of you, your talents and like your backgrounds have really kind of allowed this festival to be what it is. Let's start with you, Leo.
Um, well, I started like most indie kids at 18 working in record stores. And then I started DJing indie club nights and booking bands. And I moved up from Florida to Atlanta to New York in 2000. And when I moved up, my dream was to work at a cool record label. But at the time, I was still working at Rebel Rebel, which is like a super hip indie record store that imported records mostly from the UK to the US. And I was also working at a distribution company called ADA and also hosting my own club nights. And from there, it kind of just kept growing and growing. And um, like Mike at the time, my girlfriend said, you should put out some of these bands that come to play your club nights. Even when they're not playing, they just always come hang out. And they kind of look at you like, as someone that needs advice and to follow and whatnot. And I was like, you're crazy. I could never do that. And then eventually we did start a K9 Records together, which started around 2003. And it's still going strong today. And from there, I kept doing club nights as well. And that's how I ended up meeting like Mike and Steven and them.
So would you say the club scene in New York City is thriving right now compared to maybe 10, 20 years ago? Is it struggling? Like what would
That
you
would
put the
depend on
pulse
what you
on?
mean by club.
Yeah. I think it has shrunk in a sense that DJ culture is not as strong. When I moved here in 2000 and probably through at least 2015, it was really strong as an indie DJ, and indie club nights were really big where you could get an average of 500 true music lovers and every Friday night to come out. And even on weird nights like Tuesdays and stuff. Now I think it's kind of gone back and become really smaller, but and the main reason is more of gentrification where things have moved out farther, where everything was centered around Lower East Side, and now things are in the Bronx, Ridgewood, Waynesburg, or like Manhattan. So the scenes are just dispersed and more small. And what I think tends to happen more now is it's just more focused on more seeing local live bands in small venues.
Okay. What about you, Mike?
So yeah, I got my start as a wannabe musician, a little more than wannabe. I went to Berkeley College of Music, studying bass, and as my fallback, studying music business management, just in case the whole rock star thing didn't work out. After, while I was in Massachusetts or Boston, I worked at Newberry Comics, which actually Tower Records and then Newberry Comics. And Newberry Comics was probably, the coolest record chain in New England. After graduation, I moved back to the New York City area. I grew up in New Jersey, and I was just eager to work for like some cool record label, or I didn't really know exactly what I want. And then the folks at Newbury Comics reached out to me and told me there's a company called Filter Magazine, and they have a marketing company, and they're looking for somebody to be like their New York rep. And I did that for many years, working with like basically every cool quote unquote hipster indie band in the early 2000s. We used to do events at South by Southwest. So every year I was producing concerts with like at the time up and coming artists like Ed Sheeran, Robin, Black Rebel Motorcycle Club. And then from there, we noticed that the record label budgets to help with marketing were shrinking naturally because of streaming as well. And when I was at South by Southwest, I was like, wow, there's a Australia party, there's a France party, there's all these other countries. So I started reaching out to these what's called export offices and just being like, maybe we should do something together. And Norway was the first one to get back to me. They brought me out to Norway. We did all these really cool events here in the US. From there, I co-founded a music festival in Los Angeles called Culture Collide with Filter. And we brought a bunch of like bands from around the world. It was probably about 75 artists. Um, and then at South by Southwest, my role was producing the German party, the Norway party, the Iceland party. We'd have like three brunches. And some of them were super cool. Now, I did that for about 4 years until I just felt like, okay, I've been doing this a long time. I need to not do this until I retire. And then from there, I was consulting for the different countries like Canada, Netherlands. It could be like setting up professional events here. It could be setting up and producing showcases. And then, yeah, from there, it was just, yeah, I was working with Norway. I was their US representative for the entire Norwegian music industry. And from there, as I'd mentioned earlier, that's where the genesis of the idea for the new Colossus came.
Yeah. Wow.
That's my history. And I still play music. I enjoy it, but not professionally.
Guitarist, drummer, bassist, what do we got?
A little bit of both, but mostly bass. Yeah.
All right. Steve, what you got?
Mike was in a band called Neckbeard Telecaster that lived at Death by Audio. And so we were part of the same friend group for a while before I knew him. I don't know I never know where to start with my career. It's a little insane. As you said earlier, I worked at the New York Film Academy, wanted to be a filmmaker, saw the same Boy Meets Girl to a YouTube video film. 30 of those were made per month there. And I was like, I hate this. It's so cliched. I mean, it's film school, so these people are still learning, but I was like, this is not for me. Bought a guide to management in New York City at Barnes and Noble back in the day when the fax machine still ruled supreme. Faxed heartfelt letters to about 15 managers, including Linda Goldstein, who manages Bobby McFerrin and a bunch of jazz people, and Michael Lang, who did Woodstock. Now, I didn't know Michael Lang did Woodstock when I went to interview with him. All I knew is that he managed Billy Joel and Ricky Lee Jones. I'm an enormous Ricky Lee Jones fan, so that was enough to get me in the door. So I walk in his office, and it's a huge loft, and the entire wall is a panorama photo of Woodstock 69. And I was like, whoa, what's this? And so, yeah, his girlfriend knew St. John's College. I was a philosophy major, and I was really faced with how the hell am I going to get a job now? And it actually got me the job because she was from Maryland, and St. John's is in Annapolis, Maryland. But anyway, so Michael and I got along really well. We worked together for 15 years, and I worked on Woodstock 99. We managed the biggest singer in Turkey named Tarkan for a long time, and then it all comes boiling to a close in 2007 when we did a Lauryn Hill tour, which was an absolute nightmare. And she took 3 hours to take the stage every night, and I had to write letters to the mayor of Nice apologizing for breaking curfew. And at the end of the that tour, I gained tour managing experience. I went to Tel Aviv and Serbia and Istanbul on that tour. I met the Rolling Stones in the hotel in Serbia because they were friends with Michael. I stepped in an elevator and there was Snoop Dogg. And I got back and I was like, why am I sitting in an office every day? So I started my own management company, and interviewed all the bands on the Lower East Side, and I picked a place to bury strangers because they were playing out 3 times a week, which is always a good sign. Leo was probably at those 3 shows a week. And luckily for me, they got Best New Music on Pitchfork a month later, literally into me managing them. So that was just this incredible firestorm, and I was ready for it. I'd been doing management with Michael forever. So I was a really good manager for them. And Oliver has become like my brother. I've now been managing that band for 18 years. Um, and as I said before we started recording, I was on tour for 3 years as their tour manager, and I started to feel like I was going to die because touring is really, really difficult, and I was older than them. And I got a call from Pianos, where the drummer from A Place for Strangers, Jay, worked, and Carlo asked me to book pianos because Zach was leaving. Zach and I were good friends, and Zach was leaving to open Baby's All Right. So I wound up booking pianos for 9 years. And if I and my best friend Tris always said, if you're not booking a venue at the festival, you have no place to center the festival from. So after that, I moved over to what was called Lola, which is now Lucinda's,
Mhm.
and we did the festival in 2020 while I was the booker there. And then after the pandemic, Jesse Mallon, who owns those venues, asked me to book Berlin. So I was the talent buyer at Berlin for 2 years. Still, I've always based the festival out of pianos, and thank you to those people for letting me come back 1 week a year and be an insane lunatic in their office. And I literally sit in the seat that I sat in for 9 years that week. And when I'm walking there to start the festival, I'm always like, life is so wild. I just can't escape pianos. I'll be going there for the rest of my life, I guess. Yeah, and then I've expanded my management company. I now manage Gift and Prune as well. They both played the festival. It was how I got to know them. We signed. I have a record label called Dead Strange that Oliver and I started during the pandemic. We signed Gift, and I worked so well with them, and specifically with TJ, the lead singer, that I've been managing them now for 3 years. And they have their third album coming out on Captured Tracks. Prune is involved in touring for the entire year. There's a label bidding war over her. It's been a lot of fun. I've gotten to meet every label that exists over the past 4 months as I was doing the festival, which was kind of funny to juggle. And now that I'm not booking a venue anymore, I'm going to travel with the bands I manage, which I haven't done since 2010. So I'm going to Italy next month, Paris and England in May, and so on. I'm not going to list it all because it'll make me definitely seem crazy.
So I have to ask you, what do you think is the biggest, I get, well, maybe not biggest, but what do you think is the most successful avenue or way to be a tour manager for bands nowadays?
You have to have empathy. And my least favorite thing about booking pianos was British tour managers. In Britain, there's this sort of culture of bullying in the music industry where, like, when you're playing a venue, you're met with antagonism immediately. I was so happy when I started booking pianos that I'd been a tour manager because I was so welcoming to the bands. I would immediately like bring them bottles of water. Just teeny little things like that are going to make bands happy. We try to do that with the festival too. We try to have as much empathy for the bands as we can. When we bring on partners, we're like, well, what can you give the bands? When we decide the topics for the panels, we're like, what are the members of Feet going to want to watch? Feet, because we know Feet are coming. We look at their ages. We try to really do everything. So being a tour manager will really let you see the other side of things as a manager or a booker. I've done everything but be an agent because I do not want my life to be about haggling about money. That's just a job I've never wanted to do.
Gotcha. Okay. And then I just have two questions about Woodstock 99. First question is obviously you picked Rome, New York as the venue. Were
I
there,
didn't pick New York.
well, no, I know, but were there other venues that were in
Yes,
play?
actually, yes. So, um, poor Michael Lang, like that train wreck documentary was just a hatchet job on him.
It was
For
so
instance,
stupid.
I told
Yeah.
them in great detail why the festival was lit on fire, and they refused to run it because they were afraid that the Red Hot Chili Peppers, who caused the fires, would strike out and sue them. And they left me out of the documentary. There's some pictures of unauthorized pictures of me and my friends working in the office in the third part of that documentary. But so Michael tried to have the festival in Saugerties, where Woodstock was, and that fell through at the last minute. And he found an Air Force base in Rome, and he had very bad luck that it was 110 degrees out that week on an Air Force base on concrete. And we partnered with this company called Ogden that funded the festival. They are a company that has nothing to do with music. They staff airports. They provide supplies to airports. So they were, when they set the price on water, they were not thinking about it being 110 degrees in concrete. And so Michael and John Scher were lambasted for that. And it wasn't them that did it. It was the people who were providing the money. Woodstock 99 was an incredible party. I danced on a catwalk with 100,000 people underneath me with Fatboy Slim DJing, and he put on Praise You, and I've never seen anything like it in my life. 100,000 people jumping up and down in unison. Perry Farrell was standing next to me. Like, it was just, there's so many memories. Like, I hung out with George Clinton as the mothership was landing before he went on stage, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers were just a problem. Lee Bloomer, who was Michael's best friend who worked on Woodstock 69, she insisted there be a political element because the music out at that time was Korn and Limp Bizkit, and not political, the opposite of political. And we know what wound up happening there. So she handed out 100,000 candles, and there was a gun control organization there that was waiting for Michael to take them to the Red Hot Chili Peppers to ask them to dedicate Under the Bridge to their gun control organization. And he didn't have time. So I went. I hadn't slept for 4 days. I was so grumpy. And I went over and I said, "Hey, can you guys dedicate Under the Bridge to this gun control organization?" They handed out 100,000 candles. And Flea literally comes over, shoves me to the ground, and says, "We don't make political statements." He was very angry. So I stood up and I said, you dedicated Stevie Wonder's Higher Ground to your guitar player that died of a heroin overdose. That's a political statement. And that made them more angry, of course. So I walked to the front of the stage. For some reason, I was wearing white pants, and I sink down into 3 feet of mud. And Michael Lang's daughter, he had twin daughters that were on either side of me. Flea sees me and he goes, "Oh shit, it's that guy. If you have a gun, throw it in the garbage. And if you have a tampon, throw it at him." And so tampons rained down all over everyone. And I started to run away. I was like, this is so crazy. And that's when they played Fire and said, and, basically said, light the place on fire. So that's the true story of what went wrong at Woodstock 99. And I hope they don't sue me.
Yeah, I mean, I was there, and it was an amazing time for me. Like, yes, despite everything that you saw and all that stuff, like I will always remember the great thing. Like, I will never forget jumping up and down with 200,000 people to Rage Against the Machine. Like you said, like in an airport hangar with Fatboy Slim and Moby. Like, it was
Yep.
amazing. Like, it was absolutely amazing. I will never forget it. So thank you for being a part of it. Now, my other question though is what were there any other bands that were on your guys' radar that didn't play or that were on your like top three that you couldn't get for the festival?
Always, every year. In fact, the bands that cancel on us, the month before the festival are usually our favorite bands. That's just the way it goes, right, Leo?
Yeah, it happens every year. A lot of it is just based on bands not willing to invest in their own careers. A lot of like bands just want funding and want to be paid to come tour and play. And but with these new bands, I always explained to them was like, don't you invest in college? Don't you invest in your laptop, your phone, your DJ equipment? How many pedals do you have? Like you can't wait for someone to hand you something. You're 18 to 22 now. This is the perfect time. You have to just throw it down and like invest in yourself. I mean, I had to do it for myself. I had to pay for myself to move to New York in order to build my music career. If I would have just waited for someone to hand me the perfect job down in Atlanta, and it would have never happened.
Yeah, but there, like, and just to pile onto that thought, there are some artists, that's all they do is they just live off their funding. And, I don't know if it's changed, but I remember hearing that about Canadian artists. That's just, they get paid to tour, they get paid to record, they get paid to market and hire PR.
Yeah.
So there's also a certain lack of urgency for them. And they end up reaching this point of just being comfortable and being professional musicians without actually having to put in the same amount of work as like a artist here in the US who gets literally no funding unless you're some kind of like heritage band like jazz or opera or something. But I mean, you know we do appreciate that this scene that we operate in is full of people who are just trying to make stuff work. We're not pop stars, we're not like part of this whole like record or music industry machine. a lot of the artists we work with, they don't have any people with guiding their careers. And then, yeah, if they get the funding, great. But to Leo's point, I mean, Steve and I actually did the math, and it's like if you can put away a little bit of money every month, you can absolutely make it here and make it to the United States. But yeah, and some of these bands are booked months in advance, so it's like it's a bummer when they cancel, but it's also like it's hard to have a lot of sympathy for them.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I guess too, the only I've seen, or I guess an example too for like more for South by, and maybe not your festival, but where a band is planning on going to South by, and then they get booked for an opening slot for somebody that's decent, or somebody that's on a European tour. Like obviously you have to give them a little slack for that, but I mean, other than that, like there should be no reason if you get invited to a lineup, like like make it happen, right?
Yeah, there
Yeah.
are a lot of bands that have canceled on us, and then their friends come over and come back and we're like, that was the best experience of my life. And then they come back to us like, hey, we want to play now. So like we're forgiving for that because a lot of people, and we understand too, don't haven't experienced and don't understand the value that we've created for them. So when they finally hear like the vibe and everything from other people who are their like friends or like fellow musicians, they get more excited about it.
Yeah, and then beyond that too, like the music industry is actually here. So, like, I mean, they don't live in Texas. They
Yeah.
don't, I mean, so if you're an international band, you have really three cities you should visit: New York, LA, or Nashville if you fit the Nashville vibe. Maybe Miami.
Chicago and
So
San
to
Francisco are pretty good.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I guess too. But I mean, coming to New York, that should be a priority for any international musician because just the amount of things that you could accomplish beyond the festival, taking meetings, doing photo shoots, etc. I mean, like I think that alone is worth the investment.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But
Talk about Yeah, talk about like how you guys are able to also, because Live Nation obviously, as we all know, is the gentle giant in the room. Like how does being able to put on this festival allow you to kind of circumvent their kind of like reach and like because they do the radius clauses and all that stuff. Like how do you guys circumvent all of that?
Well, we're not doing this to get rich, and everything Live Nation does is for them to get rich. And I'm not even slamming them; they would agree with that. That our festival is about helping bands. We've all been working in music for 20 years, and we want to give back, and we love helping bands. We work with an agency called Anibal. They're located in Italy. They have picked up 10 to 15 bands from the festival that are now touring Europe. It makes me so happy. I work with Luca, the owner now, on Prune. And partnerships like that, you'll see this band Glimmer. I sent them to Luca, and then I look at Instagram, and there's all these videos of them playing packed houses in Europe, and I was like, wow, it's that easy. I don't think Live Nation is interested in helping bands get agents, and nor should they be. They're trying to make as much money for the artists as they can, while taking as big a percentage of the money as they can as well. I mean, that's just the way it is. We did have one venue, the Mercury Lounge, that's owned by Live Nation. They were very difficult to work with. They would It would take me 30 emails to get a response. We just weren't important because that's not their job. Their job is not to be communal with the other venues in the neighborhood. And they were very clear about that. And it's a shame because the venue has great sound and we haven't been there last 2 years. And when I look at who's playing there, it's mostly TikTok artists.
Anybody else?
no, I mean, I just think, Live Nation is not in the same spirit as what we do. I mean, we are an indie festival. Live Nation is like the major label of touring artists. So, I mean, if an artist gets to the point where they are within that world, great, cool. I hope they find the success that they're looking for. But for us, I mean, there's a certain level of there's a lot more flexibility with what we do. And to your point about radius clauses, we do have one. Um, and we want the artists to stay within our community and not have to fight them on that. I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. We want the artists to stay within the Lower East Side and play the three, maybe four shows that they get, and not go over to like some of the other venues in Brooklyn or you know, other Lower East Side venues within the time period that we're presenting the festival.
Have you had any issues with the band trying to do that since you guys started, or has that been kind of pretty clear cut from the beginning?
I mean, it's not really, I wouldn't say issue.
Right.
I mean, we have like nearly 200 bands. So if like two bands go play another show,
Yeah.
it's not going to kill our festival. If they were like the headliners, we might feel it, I think. But again, it's just, we need to have a certain level of consistency. So, that rule would apply to everybody. And we have ways of enforcing.
So I want to ask each of you, what is your favorite way to listen to music? Are you guys in the car? Are we headphones? Are we speakers in the living room? Like, how is the best way that we listen to music? Leo, start off.
Well, I'm a massive vinyl collector, so I have like a really powerful stereo system with nice, real techniques, turntables, and I mean, I listen to vinyl all day long when I'm working or just hanging out. So, but I also have a cassette Walkman that I use when I walk around the neighborhood, like that, and I have a CD player in my car. So when I still make mixtapes or mix CDs when we go on trips, so I kind of listen to all formats.
How about you, Mike?
I mean, I do have a turntable and speakers. Unfortunately, I'm not home enough to really put them to as good use as I wish I could. I don't have a cassette player, although people still give me cassettes. I'm like, thanks. They're more just like collectibles. For me, it's the streaming services, and to a certain point, I do feel a little guilty knowing how the artists are not really benefiting from me listening that way. But I do try and mix it up with between the different services, Spotify, Apple Music, or YouTube. And I do actually prefer YouTube over all of them because I can find a lot more than the other services. So yeah, that's me.
Steve?
I've had this increasing problem over the last 40 years, which is my relationship to Joni Mitchell, where I just listen to more and more and more Joni Mitchell every year. And um, but I have a group of friends from high school. We've been doing this thing called the Critics Poll every last Saturday in January. There's about five of us. We're all still friends. And we have a listening schedule that my buddy Tris McCall makes. He used to be the music critic at the Star Ledger, so he really hears everything.
Sure.
And we listen to two albums a day for 3 months leading into that day. And I know if I'm not exploring the world of music enough, by December, I'm going to hear every album that comes out that year. And then we spend like 12 hours filling out the poll on the last Saturday in January. And then I get to listen to Joni Mitchell again.
Wow.
Um, but yeah, I mean, Joni Mitchell, there's an album by Van Morrison called Vegan Fleece that I've been going to sleep to every single night for 6 months. And when my Spotify Wrapped got back, it said basically, you listen to Vegan Fleece. The 10 songs on that album were my top 10 songs that I listened to all year. It knocks me right out. And I have really terrible insomnia after the festival, after working like that for a couple months. It's hard to let your brain sort of relax and calm down. That's why I'm in Florida right now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you guys said, I mean, this is a year-round now process. I mean, like, I guess talk about, I guess maybe like the timeline, how from now till the year, like how does kind of like, going through the process.
Leo is a crazy person. He booked all of our show. We're doing monthly shows at Sleepwalk from May to December, I think, or November. Yeah, he booked them in February, and I was like, I want no part of that. And he just went and he booked the whole thing. It's a lot of bands from New York that played the festival this year. They're going to be great. They're the first Thursday of every month. And now I'm booking. We have four outdoor shows in Greeley Square, which is on 32nd and Broadway, over the summer, and I'm going to book those. That'll be another 12 bands. And basically, when the pandemic was sort of, when we were coming out of the pandemic, Leo's friends at Mother Bar, which is his local bar, they have a place called 18th Ward Brewery. We started doing 22 weeks of shows of five bands a day in 2021, and we did it for 3 or 4 years, 4 years, 3 years,
Four, 4 years.
4 years. So that allowed us to really know the New York music scene, right? Because 22 times 5 is 110. So we saw 110 bands every summer. We saw this band, Star Cleaner Reunion there, and we booked them at the festival, and I booked them on my label party, and now they're a nationally touring, very well-known band. We like to think we helped them with that. And the weirdest thing about them was it turned out they're from my hometown, and my hometown's pretty obscure. It's Springfield, New Jersey, and they went to my high school. And the thing that's made me feel oldest in the last 30 years of doing this is their mom showed up to their show at Pianos and she went to school with my sister, who is a lot older than me. But still, I was like, whoa, that was crazy. Yeah,
So I would say confidently then all three of you would confidently say that when you hear people say, "Oh, new music is it's just not good, it's not good," like we can all tentatively agree that music is better than it ever has been, I think, right?
It hasn't
definitely
changed.
the New York music scene is better than it's ever been,
Honestly, I
for
think it
sure.
hasn't changed. It's always been good since I was a little kid. It's always evolving, and there's an endless supply of new bands. Like just when I think, Steven, we don't have enough new bands for the summer shows. There's already another 200 that I've never heard of that are great. And it's like Mike says, New York is the music capital, at least of the U.S. So people are moving here from nonstop and always meeting new like-minded people to form bands. So we can't run out of them. And I'm a big vinyl collector, and I'm always collecting new shoegaze, especially my favorite genre, records all the time from bands from all over the world. And it's like I have lists of records I want to buy because I can't afford to buy them all at once. So it's like it never, and it's like which means that there's always more.
I think at a certain age, it's easy to dismiss the music that's coming out as being something that you'd be interested in. I remember my mom in the 80s was still actively buying music and interested in watching MTV, etc. And then something changed around like the early 90s where she was just like, I don't like any of this. This is all garbage. And I think that's, a natural thing. Once you hit a certain age, it just becomes easier to dismiss. And what I find amazing is I am always surprised at the new discoveries that are made, whether it's recordings or seeing somebody live. And that's really what keeps me going because I find myself falling into that same mindset, not as deep as my mom did, but just being like, okay, what's out there? I don't know. And then finding something, if it's on streaming and then just digging a little deeper and finding similar artists and that whole discovery thing, I guess, as a active music fan, that's naturally going to happen. Whereas, I guess, more passive fans may stop at within their 30s and just be like, I've heard all the music I need to hear, and I will just stick with, from what I started as a teenager until my 30s. And people like that, they're cool with that, and that's fine too. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but for me personally, I also get bored. I can't listen to the same genre for too long. It really I just I need variety. So one day I'm listening to indie rock or something heavy, and then the next day I'm listening to like calypso music, and then the next day I'm listening to classical. And that also just keeps me going because there is so much out there, and yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. What about you, Steve?
I love the mix of the three of us. Mike is more, like Mike's favorite artist was this pop singer from Iceland. Leo's favorite artist was probably all the shoegaze bands on his label. My favorite artist was like Heat Death, Bussy Queen Power Trip, and the punk rock bands that played my label party. And so we naturally book a festival with lots of variety because we have totally different tastes. Like alien chicks were like, "Is Leo gonna like us?" I was like, "Absolutely not. There's no way." Leo has his lane of stuff he listens to. I want to see a band that's going to make me want to throw my body into other people on the floor. And Leo broke his arm last year, and he's just not going to be doing that.
Did you break your
But
arm?
he broke his arm skateboarding.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah.
Real
Um,
punks never give it up.
Yeah, I mean, but actually, my friend Tris makes fun of me when I say I'm the punk rock guy because I'm not. Again, Joni Mitchell's my favorite artist. I listen to everything. I love when Leo shoots down a band to me, and then I listen to them again, and I kind of get it. It's very rare that we ever disagree about a band. So when we're going through bands to book at the festival, we are both very fast, which really helps. I don't think we could have 200 bands play if we weren't fast. It's just so
Mhm.
much work.
And
But to
like,
this point, the bands need to fit together. It really doesn't make sense to be an everything for everyone festival.
Mhm.
And that is the downfall of all these showcase festivals. If they haven't gone away, they will go away because you can't have a community based upon this just massive mishmash of genres. Um, and that's what I love about these genre events that Leo and Steve can talk about a little bit more is if you have bands within that same world, they're going to meet each other, they're going to work together, probably tour together, etc. If you have a folk singer followed by a metal band, followed by some Latin band, followed by some rock band, that doesn't, but they all have the same passport. What's the point of that? Like, to me, like, that is not
Actually,
as, yeah.
that's a really great point. So basically, we just say we're an indie rock festival. Like, please don't apply to the festival if you're not an indie rock band. People still do because they just insist on ignoring us, I guess. But the great thing is, the reason why those other showcase festivals are all multi-genre is because they're getting funding from the government. And if we're not getting funding from the government, we don't have any parameters. So we can say, no, we only want indie rock. We want someone who buys a badge to the festival to know that if they like indie rock, they're going to like every single band that they see. We want them to run around from venue to venue, but they don't need to. Each lineup at every venue at the festival is awesome. There was no show where I would have been like, there aren't four bands I need to see. My biggest disappointment this year was I kept getting stuck working at pianos, and I had a schedule and I missed about 30% of the bands I needed to see. And I was just going through them all and being like, oh no, I missed blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to say who, but yeah. So that's a good thing, though. You want your festival to feel like a circus where you don't know what to watch.
Yeah.
My favorite bands are like that too. Like Alien Chicks, should I watch the drummer? Should I watch the bass player? Should I watch the sax player? Should I watch the guitar player? We want the festival to be like that too.
Mhm. Yeah, and
Yeah.
just that, sorry, just to that point again, like, that's why I think these genre parties work way better than having like country parties. And you see that all the time, like the Aussie barbecue. And it's because they do get the funding and they just have to put on, in some cases, I don't know Australia specifically, but having spoken with some of these countries, they don't have a choice on who they have to bring to like South by Southwest. They get like 15, 20, 30 bands, and they just have to book them all at this one space. And it's just like, I don't think that's the right move. And we've
Mike,
done
when you
that
said
too.
country parties, it sounded like you meant country music,
Yeah.
not
No,
the
I meant like,
genre. So that's why I was laughing. You mean the country parties, meaning all bands from one country.
right. And
Yeah.
I mean, just because you have the same passport doesn't mean you should be playing together. I mean, we've done this too. We've had Canada parties last year. We had a Norway party. We had some German, like we had a German mixer with like three German bands within the lineup. I mean, and sure, I mean, if somebody really needs us to help them make that happen, we will do our best to make that happen. But it's better if a German band is playing with a UK artist or a Swedish artist because, it's entirely possible the Germans already know each other. So, what it's again, that's something like we're really being strategic about the schedule and the overall lineup. So,
And the
Yeah.
strong point of New Colossus Festival is that it's a music discovery platform. So no one's gonna discover their favorite band if they go to a show and like some hip hop guys playing next is some mellow like singer-songwriter and then a loud metal band. They're gonna go in and out of the room. But if four like-minded bands are playing in a room because you came to see Thus Love and the next band's kind of similar, you are gonna stay and you go, oh my God, that was so cool. Bed was so cool. They're my new favorite band. And that's what we're trying to achieve here with New Colossus.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's really community. That's really what it comes down to, and the power of music to create this community.
Yeah, and I
Yeah, a
mean,
great example is I saw Prune at the Dead Strange party. I missed her at the Brooklyn Vegan party because it was opposite my label party at Dead Strange, and I wound up dancing with her at the Roos World show on Saturday night in 2024. One of my favorite moments of the festival ever. Roos World is this incredible, impossible to describe band. It's basically like electronic music with a live drummer. And this was at the old Baker Falls where Nightclub 101 is, and the entire room was dancing. And I bonded with Prune. And then when Iceland Airways had me bring an artist over, and I found out I could only bring one person, I chose Prune. And then we just started traveling the world together, and she's someone I like to bring to our festival stages in like Berlin and Rotterdam that we do. And yeah, we should mention that. Like people ask us how we want to grow the festival. We don't want to grow to doing shows at Bowery Ballroom. We did that one year. It was a complete nightmare for a bunch of different reasons. It's just not what we're doing. We do want to grow in partnerships, and we are now throwing stages in Iceland, Toronto, Berlin at 8 mm Festival, and Left of the Dial is the most similar thing to the new Colossus Festival in Europe. Thanks to Sam Sumter for telling us about them. And they threw a stage for us. We threw a stage last year in October. They threw a stage for us on Saturday Night at Pianos. It was an amazing party. It was 7 bands that I saw at their festival and brought to New York. So that was really special. And then we're going to bring 5 bands to their festival in October.
Yeah, I
Great
think these
family thing.
partnerships are very important too because they are like-minded international music partners. And one of the things I saw at, I'm just going to say South by Southwest, is the importance of music shifting. I would be around there and people would be like, "Hey, I'm going to the Altoids party." And I'd be like, "Oh, cool, who's playing?" And then you would find out who's playing.
right.
Um, Instead of saying, "Hey, I'm going to go see so and so," and then the follow up is like, "Oh, where are they playing? They're playing at the Altoids party."
Was
And
there
for
actually
us,
an
like,
Altoids party?
I have Altoids here, so I was
I
just
knew it. That's why I asked.
that's why I mentioned them. I don't know if
The
Altoids,
Doritos party is the better example
the
because there
Doritos,
is
or
Doritos,
a
the
yeah.
Doritos
McDonald's
party.
party. And
Hot dog
I
and
mean, the
Doritos.
company I worked for, Filter, we kind of started that whole branded party thing. We had Dickies, we had Toyota, we had Doc Martens. And the idea that these companies were using music as a way of like, bringing more excitement to their events, it was cool. I mean, it seemed like a good idea at the time, but then it started to devalue the music, where you're going to these parties because of what they're maybe offering. Maybe it's free swag or food or whatever. And my perspective is the music. They don't need these brands. The brands need the music. So I think back to like the point of growing with these partners. If we're working with more like-minded music first partners, that can only help us grow in a very positive way. And that to me is extremely exciting, especially these international presenters like 8 mm Festival or Iceland Airwaves, etc.
Yeah. So my last question, because I know Steven has to go. What I mean, what do you see the future of this festival looking like, say, in 3 years or in 5 years? Like what ideally do you want the festival to be?
Uh,
Well, I said earlier that I want every single party to have a partner on it. So that would be six. It's about 62 parties, I think, or shows. And then, if we have more venues, 12 is plenty, but if we would have 14 venues, then we would want 70 parties. So that we'll grow it that way. It'll be about partnerships. Like Paul Atkinson is one of our volunteers. And I was like reading his blog and I was like, wait, Paul's working the show on Saturday at Baker Falls and he loves all the bands playing. Why doesn't Paul sponsor that party? And he did, and he promoted the hell out of it, and it was packed, and it was great for him, great for his blog. It's that simple. We want the partners to buy drinks for the bands, and or food for the bands. And so that's one way. Another way is the only problem with this part of the expansion is I can't travel any more than I am right now. But Mike and Leo are going to have to start doing this. It would be great if we threw like Cesar from the Spanish Wave, who's like our favorite person. He does, I don't know, 20 Spanish Wave parties around the year. He's a maniac. He's constantly at showcase festivals bringing bands from Spain to these showcase festivals, and everyone loves him, and his parties are always packed. He's a great role model for us. We should just be seeing that guy every couple of weeks at all of the places that he goes to. And when Leo and I run into him at um, wherever conference festival, Ireland Music Week, or any of those places, it's like being home. It's amazing. And the friendships that we've made since 2019 are definitely that's the best part of doing the festival for me, for sure.
I think for me, I'm kind of like a dreamer and more of an idealist. And, just putting music first, I think, is very important. Beyond what we're doing, I would love to be more inclusive, in the sense that we are only available to people who are over 21. And, at least the audience, some of the artists who come to play might be like 19 or 20. And I feel like that's a huge problem within our American society where youth do not have access to live music. I'm sure there are all ages shows or 16 plus shows, but generally that is not available here. I remember like back where I grew up in central Jersey, you can go to like VFWs or other kinds of lodges and go to like some hardcore show, which was cool, but you know, because we are operating mostly within venues that have bars and need to have strict 21 plus law, rules that they follow, for me, if as we grow, I would love to see other ways to include younger people and have them exposed to this music from around the world, then watch them grow as artists, being inspired from what they're seeing. And then I think that will improve what we are, the American music scene in some way.
The problem with that is these venues aren't going to want to do that because the revenue model is tied to alcohol, and you can't
Absolutely.
bring alcohol around underage people. So someone would have to come up with a much bigger solution on how live music can exist without it being tied to alcohol. And I know Mike is very interested in being involved in that.
Yeah. So, like galleries, I mean, it's funny, like how alcohol and bars have, since like the saloon days, have basically been the center of live music. But meanwhile, it doesn't have to be that way. I mean, there are coffee houses, there are bookstores, there are,
Event
other
centers. Yeah.
galleries. Yeah, there are so many other places that people can get together and enjoy live music. But, the traditional model is skewed towards people who are 21 plus. And I kind of, and we very much value our partners like pianos, Arlene's Grocery, etc. But there must be a way to expand beyond that. And I want to very much find a way to change that model while keeping all these venue partners on board. So, yeah.
Would there be a way that you could do it as like a block party where you could could you close off the street so then like just in the street like you could be under 21?
Early March that's not.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's being an outdoor festival is risky no matter what time of year you do it, but when it's not warm, it's even riskier, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. You
it's
don't want to
also
lose
just
money from it.
it's just the three of us basically do this festival alone, and then we have a staff of volunteers join us during the festival. But that's just going to be too much work for us to be dealing with permits and yeah, and weather and rain checks and all that stuff. I'm not interested in doing that for sure.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I can't say enough about this festival. Thank you so much. Hopefully we get 9 more years of it. And yeah, best of luck. Thank you so much for
Thank
doing
you.
this and appreciate it.
Thanks so much. That was
Well,
super
thanks,
fun.
Dog.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, our social media pages. That helps us. That helps the bands and artists and festivals that we feature. Also, check out our sponsor, RAR Outfitters. That's RAWR, outfitters.com. Don't just wear, RAR. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Dog. You've been great. This
Right.
is the Music Lab Podcast.